Welcome to the Phil and H Travel Podcast. Is it worth it?
Glad to be here for this one.
Yeah, so imagine this for a second. You have spent months planning the ultimate tropical escape, right?
Oh, yeah.
You've dropped thousands of dollars on flights, you've crossed multiple time zones to reach French Polynesia, and you finally arrive at your accommodation.
The dream vacation.
Exactly. The next morning, you wake up, pour yourself a cup of coffee, put on your swimsuit. You eagerly open your patio door, fully expecting to step onto that iconic powdery white sand you saw in all the brochures.
Uh-oh. I know where this is going.
Right. Because instead, you find yourself staring at a jagged wall of black volcanic rock, a dense patch of mangroves, and just deep water. There is no sand, none.
Total nightmare for a beach person.
Complete shock. So today we are doing an exhaustive, no stone unturned deep dive into Raiatea. It's the second largest island in the Society Islands, and it's widely considered the cultural and sailing heart of French Polynesia.
It really is a place of world-class magic, but, only if you know exactly what you're getting into.
Yeah, so we're going to tear apart the logistics, the costs, the weather, and the geography to figure out if it actually belongs on your itinerary.
Let's do it.
But really quickly, before we jump in, a quick note. If you're planning a trip and want the honest, is it worth it verdict before you book, follow the show on Spotify or Apple.
All right, so that image of the disappointed traveler staring at a mangrove swamp, that is like the perfect place to start.
Really, it's hard.
It does, because it gets to the absolute core tension of Raiatea. It is a spectacular destination, but it operates on a very specific set of rules.
Right.
And those rules are becoming increasingly important to understand because of this massive shift happening right now in how French Polynesia manages its tourism economy.
Oh, yeah, the whole four-year Manahini 2027 strategy.
Exactly. So if you are looking at a trip in 2026 or 2027, the timing of your booking genuinely matters. We are on a ticking clock regarding the value you can get out of this island.
Let's contextualize that ticking clock for a second. Looking at the data, the government recently capped international arrivals at roughly 280,000 visitors per year, right?
Yeah, 280,000,
Which, when you look at the population of French Polynesia, that cap means they are maintaining a ratio of roughly one visitor for every resident.
Right, they don't want to get overwhelmed.
Exactly. And at the same time, I'm reading about this deliberate strategy to steer people away from the historically overloaded hubs. And by hubs, we are mainly talking about Bora Bora.
Unquestionably Bora Bora.
Yeah. And redirecting them to islands that supposedly have more capacity. And Raiatea is sitting right at the top of that list.
It is. The government has looked at the trajectory of global tourism, places like Venice or Bali, where they've essentially buckled under the sheer volume of visitors.
Just total over-tourism.
Exactly. So they've made this conscious pivot from volume to value. They don't want endless growth, They want sustainable, distributed economic benefits.
Which makes sense.
It does. Because Bora Bora has historically absorbed the lion's share of the territory's hospitality revenue.
And it's ecological pressure, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. So the government is actively pushing the spotlight onto the Leeward Islands, specifically Raiatea, to disperse that footprint.
Plus, there's that looming passenger tax, right?
Right. There's a quite substantial passenger tax waiting in the wings to fund infrastructure. That tax is guaranteed to raise the baseline cost of every future trip.
So the implication here is pretty clear. Raiatea is being groomed as a headline destination, but because it hasn't, fully arrived in the mainstream consciousness yet, the prices haven't caught up to the ambition.
That's the rare window we're talking about.
Right. You are looking at a very rare window where you can experience the absolute pinnacle of Polynesian culture and geography before the inevitable price spike.
But this brings us right back to that opening scenario, right? The geography.
Yes, the lack of sand. I think a lot of people operate under the assumption that if an island is in the South Pacific, it just automatically comes with a sprawling white sand beach attached to every hotel.
And that assumption is exactly what leads to the profound psychological shock you described earlier.
So why does it happen? Break down the geology for us.
Well, you have to look at the life cycle of a volcanic island. When these islands first violently erupt out of the ocean floor, they are steep, jagged, and heavily mountainous.
Right, like big rocks in the ocean.
Exactly. But over millions of years, the heavy volcanic rock begins to slowly sink back into the Earth's crust. It's a process called subsidence.
Okay, so the island is actually sinking.
Yes, and as it sinks, the coral reefs grow upwards toward the sunlight, forming a barrier ring around the sinking island.
Oh, wait, so an older island has sunk further down, which allows a massive, wide, sandy lagoon to form between the main mountain and the outer reef.
Precisely. Bora Bora is an older island. It has subsided deeply, which is why it has those famous expansive sandy shallows hugging its main coastline.
Okay, so what about Raiatea?
Raiatea, relatively speaking, is younger. It is steeper. The central mountain hasn't sunk enough to create those wide sandy shelves on the main island's shore.
Got it.
So the shoreline drops off quickly into fringing reef, muddy bays, and mangroves. The pristine white sand definitely exists, but it has been swept out to the very edges of the coral reef.
And it just accumulates there.
Right, on these tiny islets called motu.
Okay, so if I'm visualizing this, the sand is basically out on the perimeter fence of the lagoon.
Exactly on the perimeter.
So to get to the sand, I have to physically leave the main island of Raiatea. Like, I have to hire a boat, pay an operator, and cross the deep water just to reach the motu.
That is the structural reality of the island. And honestly, this dictates exactly who this island is for.
Who is it for them?
Well, Raiatea is built for sailors who live on the water anyway. It's built for culture seekers who want to understand the history of the Polynesian people.
And hikers, I assume.
Oh, big time. Hikers who want to summit volcanic peaks will love it. And it is a phenomenal destination for travelers who want to experience the dramatic beauty of a South Pacific lagoon without the staggering, eye-watering price tag of a mega resort.
But there's a skip-if warning here.
There is a non-negotiable warning. It should absolutely be skipped by anyone whose entire vacation goal is to wake up, grab a book, and step directly from their room onto the sand.
Right, do not go to Raiatea if you just want to walk out of your bedroom and onto a beach.
You will be miserably disappointed.
Okay, we're going to dive incredibly deep into all of this. The costs, the logistics, the weather, and how to avoid the traps that snare first-time visitors.
Lots of traps to cover.
For sure. But first, let's explore the irony of Raiatea's reputation. You look at the history, and you could easily make the contrarian claim that Raiatea is the most important, culturally significant island in all of French Polynesia.
I would absolutely make that claim.
Yet, for the vast majority of modern tourists, it's treated as a glorified transit lounge. People fly in, they never actually stay on the island, and they just leave.
It's tragic, honestly, because the historical gravity of Raiatea is immense. Long before the Europeans arrived, Raiatea was known as Hawaii.
Hawaii, like Hawaii.
Similar root, yes. It is widely considered the cradle of Polynesian civilization and religion. And the epicenter of this history is a site on the east coast called marae Taputapuatea.
I was reading the source materials on this, and honestly, the scale of what happened there is mind-blowing.
It really is. Now, for those who don't know, a marae is an ancient open-air temple or communal sacred space. They're typically constructed with massive platforms of black basalt volcanic stones and large slabs of coral.
And Taputapuatea isn't just a standard marae.
No, it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and universally acknowledged as the most sacred place in the entire region.
Right, because this wasn't just a local place of worship. This was the launch pad for one of the greatest feats of human exploration in history.
Exactly. It was the spiritual and navigational center of the Polynesian Triangle. The master navigators, the priests, and the chieftains would all gather at Taputapuatea.
To plan voyages.
Yes. From this specific stretch of coastline, they launched massive, double-hulled voyaging canoes. They navigated by the stars, the ocean swells, and the flight paths of birds.
Just incredible.
And they set out across thousands of miles of open ocean to settle Hawaii to the north, New Zealand to the southwest, and Easter Island to the east.
And they actually took stones with them.
They did. The stones of Taputapuatea were taken on these voyages to serve as the foundation stones for new marae in these distant lands.
Yeah.
It physically connected the entire Pacific back to Raiatea.
Wow. So you have this site of unparalleled global historical significance, and yet the standard modern tourist itinerary treats Raiatea as a footnote.
A total footnote.
Like, people fly in, go straight to the marina in the town of Uturoa, grab a charter catamaran, and literally sail away within a few hours.
Or a cruise ship docks for the day. Passengers wander around town for a bit, buy a few bundles of vanilla, and get right back on the ship. The island itself is the hub everyone skips.
It is the great paradox of French Polynesian travel.
It really is. But that paradox is exactly what creates the economic opportunity for the savvy traveler today.
How so?
Because the massive crowds and the luxury resort developers have historically focused on Bora Bora, Raiatea has maintained a highly authentic, uncommercialized atmosphere. And, more importantly, an entirely different pricing structure.
Okay, let's talk numbers, because the value gap is staggering. I've got the headline USD costs right here in my notes, and when you put them side by side with the famous neighbors, it almost looks like a typo.
The numbers don't lie.
Let's look at getting there. An Air Tahiti or Air Milana flight from the main international airport in Papeete over to Raiatea is going to cost you roughly $160 to $190 one way.
Yep, standard domestic rate.
A rental car for the day, which as we'll discuss is practically mandatory, runs roughly $65 to $95.
Right.
Now, if you are looking at accommodation, a very comfortable half-board family pension, meaning your breakfast, and a hearty local dinner are included in the rate, sits near $110 to $160 a night.
That's a steal.
Oh, an entry to marae Taputapuatea, the most famous UNESCO-listed site in the entire South Pacific. It is completely 100% free.
Now hold those figures in your mind. Take that $110 to $160 a night for a half-board stay and contrast it with Bora Bora.
Let's hear it.
Over there, a standard entry-level overwater bungalow at a major resort is going to run you a minimum of $1,080 per night.
Jeez.
And that's usually significantly more during the high season. And that price often doesn't even include breakfast.
You are literally paying 10 times the price for a room.
Exactly. The value proposition of Raiatea is undeniable for a specific type of traveler. You're getting access to the exact same vibrant lagoon ecosystem, the same dramatic, cloud-piercing volcanic peaks, and a far deeper cultural experience for a fraction of the cost.
But, okay, I have to push back a little here, because I know our listeners, I hear you saying it's cheaper, and I see the math.
Right.
But we also just established that if I actually want to lay on a beach, I have to hire a boat operator to take me to a motu.
You do.
And those boat tours run roughly $108 to $162 per person per day. If I'm a traveler who wants to spend 5 days of my week on the sand, paying $150 a day just to commute to the beach feels like a massive hidden tax. Does that completely destroy the value case?
It absolutely destroys the value case if you are a beach-first traveler. This is the skip-if signal we have to broadcast loudly.
Right.
The economics of Raiatea only work if your itinerary aligns with what the island naturally offers. If your mental image of a vacation involves reading a book under a palm tree on the sand for 7 consecutive days, Raiatea is a very expensive mistake.
As of the boat fees.
Yes. The daily friction and the daily cost of arranging boat transfers to the motu will infuriate you and just drain your budget.
So if you are the traveler demanding walkout beach access, where should you route your trip instead?
You need to be looking at the offshore modus of Taha, where there are resorts built right on the sand. Or you go to Bora Bora if you have the budget.
Are there any other alternatives?
Alternatively, you head out to the Tuamotu atolls, like Whakarava or Rangiroa, where the entire geography is essentially nothing but coral sand.
Okay, good to know.
But for the explorer, the hiker, the traveler who wants to rent a car and discover hidden valleys, or the sailor who wants to navigate one of the best lagoons on Earth, Raiatea is the undisputed value champion.
And again, the urgency is that this window is closing.
It's closing fast. Beyond the new Ferrier Manihini strategy and the looming taxes, there is currently an 18% hotel renovation squeeze happening across the territory.
Wait, what does that mean?
It means existing properties on other islands are closing for upgrades. That reduces the overall supply of beds, which pushes overflow demand and thereby prices onto islands like Raiatea. The time to capture this value is right now.
All right, let's transition from the why and the how much and dig into the when. Because looking at the climatology data, French Polynesia is not one of those destinations where you can just throw a dart at a calendar and expect perfect weather.
Oh, definitely not.
The seasonal split here is fierce.
It dictates everything. You are dealing with a deeply tropical environment, and the weather patterns fundamentally alter the logistics, the safety, and the enjoyment of your trip.
What's the golden rule then?
The overarching golden rule for Raiatea and the Society Islands in general is that your best window is the austral winter, which translates to the dry season running from May through October.
Let's break down the mechanics of the dry season. Why is it so much better?
It comes down to humidity, wind, and rainfall. During the May to October window, the trade winds, they call them the marae, kick in consistently from the southeast.
And they cool things down.
Yes. These winds act as a natural air conditioner, dropping the oppressive humidity to a highly comfortable level. They also steady the weather patterns, meaning rainfall hits its annual low.
Which is great for sailing.
It's crucial for sailing. For Raiatea, which is the sailing capital, these steady trade winds provide perfect, predictable conditions for navigating the lagoon.
even within that 6-month block, there has to be a peak time, right?
Yes. June and September are the absolute sweet spots
Why those 2 months?
because they offer the premium dry season weather, but they cleverly bracket the peak French school holiday period, which happens in July and August.
Ah, smart.
Yeah, if you go in June or September, you get all the climatic benefits with slightly less crowding at the pensions and slightly better pricing on flights and car rentals.
Okay, let's look at the flip side. Let's say someone is listening to this in North America or Europe. They are freezing in February and they think, I'll just escape the winter and go to the South Pacific.
People do that all the time.
What is the reality of arriving in February?
The reality is that you are walking into the December to March wet season, and it feels like an entirely different, vastly more hostile island.
But still how?
Well, the trade winds often die down, replaced by stagnant, incredibly heavy, stifling humidity. The heat spikes. But the real issue is the precipitation. This isn't just a brief afternoon tropical shower. You are dealing with torrential, multi-day downpours.
And given what we know about the geography of those steep volcanic mountains, that rain has immediate consequences.
Instant consequences. The interior trails, like the hike up Mount Timahani, turn into dangerous, impassable mudslides.
Wow. Okay.
And the heavy runoff from the mountains pours silt and debris into the lagoon, which turns the normally crystal clear snorkeling visibility into a cloudy soup. Most critically, this window is the South Pacific cyclone season.
Cyclones? That sounds serious.
While a direct catastrophic hit by a major cyclone isn't an everyday occurrence, the broader low-pressure systems cause massive logistical disruptions.
And we are going to dive deep into that domino effect of flight cancellations in our logistics traps segment later, because trying to island hop during a storm sounds like a nightmare.
It truly is.
What about the shoulder seasons?
April and November are your transitional periods. April is usually a great gamble. The heavy rains are tapering off, the island is brilliantly lush and green from the wet season, and you can secure excellent shoulder season rates before the June crowds arrive.
And November?
November is the opposite.
Yeah.
You're at the end of the dry season, the humidity is noticeably creeping up, and the threat of rain is increasing, but it can still offer decent conditions if you're willing to roll the dice.
Speaking of crowds, I want to explore this fascinating demographic dynamic on Raiatea. Because when you analyze the visitor data, this island doesn't just have one homogeneous blob of tourists.
No, it's very distinct.
Right. It seems to have two completely distinct visitor economies, layered directly on top of each other, operating in the exact same space, yet they barely interact.
It's a brilliant observation, and understanding this dynamic is the key to navigating the island without losing your mind. The first economy is the sailing crowd.
Okay, sailors.
As we noted, Raiatea is the undisputed charter yacht capital of French Polynesia. At the Aotearoa Marina, you have the massive bases for global operators like Dream Yacht-Charter and Sunsail.
I was trying to think of a good analogy for this, and the closest I can get is that Aotearoa's Marina functions exactly like a base lodge in a massive ski resort town.
That's a perfect way to look at it.
Right. But instead of strapping on skis and hitting the chairlift, people arrive from the airport, grab a massive stockpile of groceries, step onto a $1 million catamaran, and literally just disappear into the lagoon.
That is exactly how it functions. During the dry season, the lagoon itself becomes incredibly busy. You have hundreds of bareboat charters, meaning people sailing themselves, and fully crewed luxury catamarans navigating between Raiatea and its sister island, Taha.
Do the lagoons feel crowded?
The popular anchorages, particularly near the coral gardens, can get surprisingly crowded in the middle of the day. So that is the first economy. Highly mobile, water-based, and dispersed across the lagoon.
And then you have the second economy, which is decidedly not dispersed.
Right, the cruise ship pressure.
Ah.
The main town of Aotearoa has a deep-water dock capable of handling significant cruise vessels. On a normal day, Aotearoa is a sleepy, functional, incredibly quiet little commercial hub. But the moment a cruise ship ties up, the town experiences something akin to a flash flood.
Like a human flash flood.
Precisely. The ship docks, the gangways lower, and suddenly thousands of day trippers pour into the streets. The small Aotearoa municipal market is overwhelmed, the few cafes are tacked to absolute capacity, and every available taxi or tour bus is commandeered.
When does this usually happen?
The peak pressure of this flash flood is highly predictable.
Yeah.
It starts around 8:00 a.m. and lasts until about 4:00 p.m.
And then the ship blows its horn, everyone scurries back on board, the gangways are pulled up, and the floodwaters recede instantly.
Yeah, the town is dead quiet by sunset.
So if I'm a traveler actually staying on the island for a week, how do I strategically navigate this?
You zig when the crowd zags. You must check the local cruise schedules online before you arrive.
That's a pro tip.
Definitely. On ship days, you hit Raiatea town and the municipal market very early in the morning, right at sunrise, before the passengers disembark. Or you wait until the late afternoon when they've all returned to the ship.
What are the cultural sites?
More importantly, if you have land-based excursions planned, like visiting the sacred Taputapuatea marae or kayaking the Raiatea River, you aggressively route those activities for the mornings when there are no ships in port.
Right.
Otherwise, you will find yourself sharing a deeply spiritual, quiet archaeological site with 200 people wearing matching cruise lanyards.
Which completely ruins the vibe.
Completely ruins it.
To really map out this strategy, we need to break down the physical geography of the island. Where are people actually going, and how is the island laid out?
We can neatly divide Raiatea into 4 distinct zones. First, you have the northeast coast, anchored by Raiatea. This is the commercial heart.
So that's where all the infrastructure is.
Yep. It's where the airport is, the deep water port, the main hospital for the region, the large supermarkets, and the marinas. It is the busiest, most functional part of the island.
Then, if you get in your rental car and drive roughly 20 kilometers down the east coast, you hit the second zone. Opa.
And Opo is entirely different from Raiatea. The commercial hum completely drops away. It is deeply scenic, heavily forested, and carries an incredible atmosphere of historical weight.
Because of the marae.
Yes, because this is where the Taputapuatea marae complex is situated. It is also where you will find the highest concentration of premium boutique accommodation, most notably the Opo Beach Hotel.
Okay, so that's the east side. What happens if I cross over to the west coast?
The west coast, centered around areas like Taputapuatea and Fairvainui, is the sleepy side of the island. It's far more isolated.
They're very chill.
Very chill. The road winds past small, family-run pensions, local churches, and quiet shoreline. It is the best place on the island to watch the sunset over the lagoon.
Sounds amazing.
It is, but it requires you to be highly self-sufficient because there are very few shops or restaurants over there.
And finally, there's the interior of the island, which, looking at the topographical maps, looks like something straight out of Jurassic Park.
It is incredibly rugged and wild. The interior is dominated by Mount Tamahani, which is this imposing volcanic plateau that peaks at roughly 772 meters.
Do a lot of tourists go up there?
Almost none. This zone sees almost zero tourist crowds because accessing it is physically demanding, requires a hired local guide for safety, and consumes a full day of arduous trekking.
Got it. So we have our zones, we know our seasons. Let's talk booking logistics. If I'm listening to this and I want to target that June to September sweet spot, how far out do I actually need to pull the trigger and hand over my credit card?
You need to lock in your flights, your accommodation, and any yacht charters roughly 3 to 6 months in advance.
Wow, that far out.
Yeah, the inventory of rooms on Raiatea is simply not that large. And because they are absorbing the overflow from Bora Bora, the best pensions book out quickly.
Okay, that makes sense.
But beyond the standard timeline, there is one highly localized, absolutely critical event that you must be aware of. The Hawaii Nui Wa.
The outrigger canoe race, correct?
Calling it a canoe race is a bit of an understatement.
Oh, really?
It is the cultural equivalent of the Super Bowl for the Polynesian people. It happens over 3 days in late October or early November. Hundreds of teams race massive 6-person outrigger canoes across the open ocean, connecting the islands of Huahin, Raiatea, Taha, and Bora Bora.
That sounds incredible to watch, but what does that mean for the average traveler just trying to book a vacation during that week?
It means a hard, impenetrable sellout.
Yikes.
The entire Leeward Islands region essentially shuts down normal tourism to support the race. Every pension room is booked by support crews, every rental car is taken, domestic flights are sold out months in advance, and the lagoon is chaotic with spectator boats.
So just avoid it entirely.
Unless you are traveling specifically to witness and celebrate the Hawaii Nui Wa, which is an incredible cultural experience in itself, you must treat that specific late October window as a total logistical blackout date.
Okay, so you've done your homework, you've booked the dry season, you've dodged the canoe race, you've checked the cruise schedules. Let's transition to the reality of stepping off the plane. We're moving into the arrival experience. I'm flying in from the main international airport, Fa, on the island of Tahiti. What does that journey look like?
The domestic flight is wonderfully easy. It's a short, stunningly beautiful 45-minute hop over the Pacific.
Very quick.
Yes. You are flying on a turboprop plane operated by either the legacy carrier Air Tahiti or the newer competitor, Air Moana. You land at Raiatea Airport, which goes by the airport code RFP, And the arrival experience is a masterclass in low-stress island time travel.
It's not a massive international hub, I take it.
Not at all. The airport sits on the northern tip of the island, just a few kilometers outside of Utaroa town. There are no sprawling terminals, no aggressive luggage carousels, no chaotic taxi ranks.
So just super low-key.
Exactly. It is a tiny, open-air structure. Within 10 minutes of the plane's wheels touching down, you have grabbed your duffel bag, walked out the front door, and you are standing on a quiet coastal road, smelling the salt air.
Are there alternatives to flying? What if I want to arrive by sea?
There's a fantastic maritime alternative called the Apekanahi Express. It's a high-speed passenger ferry that runs routes connecting Papeete and Tahiti directly to Utaroa.
How long does that take?
The crossing takes roughly 4 hours. It is cheaper than flying, costing about $80 one way, and it gives you a brilliant, on-the-water perspective of the islands as you approach.
All right, this all sounds idyllic, but researching this, here is where we hit our very first, very jarring friction point for the first-time visitor. Let's say I land at the airport, I grab my bags, I walk up to the curb, and I pull out my smartphone. Can I just call an Uber to take me to my pension? Or maybe look for a cheap local bus schedule?
Absolutely not. And this is exactly where the modern, hyper-connected traveler gets a harsh reality check.
So no Uber.
No Uber. There is no public bus network designed for tourists on Raiatea either. The local school buses, known as trucks, run highly irregular schedules that do not align with airport arrivals. Furthermore, rideshare applications like Uber or Lyft do not exist here. The population density simply cannot support a gig economy transport model.
So what are my options? I'm standing on the curb with my luggage. Can I just hail a cab?
Taxis do exist, but they are incredibly scarce, and they are protected by a local syndicate structure, which means they are very expensive.
How expensive?
Well, there is no large metered fleet waiting patiently at a taxi rank for every flight. A short 5-minute run just from the airport into the town of Utaroa can easily cost you $20 to $40.
Just for 5 minutes?
Well, and if your pension is down in Opo, 30 minutes away, you are looking at a massive fare, assuming you can even find a driver willing to take you.
So if I'm not paying exorbitant taxi fares and I'm not taking a bus, what is the default solution? Are we all just hitchhiking?
The practical, nearly mandatory default is renting a vehicle. Local operators like Raiatea Location, as well as standard desks inside the tiny terminal, will rent you a car for roughly $65 to $95 a day. If you pack light, scooters are also a highly popular and slightly cheaper option.
Having a rental car fundamentally changes the tone of the arrival, doesn't it? It shifts you from being a dependent passenger to being an autonomous explorer.
It entirely changes the psychology of the trip. Once you have the keys in your hand and you pull out of the airport, the first thing that strikes you is the sheer scale and the absolute calm of the island.
I can imagine.
Raiatea feels genuinely uncommercial compared to the manicured resort zones of Bora Bora. The pace of life drops the moment you put the car in drive. If you were staying on the East Coast, that drive down toward Opoa is one of the great coastal road trips in the Pacific.
You get those lagoon views right away.
Oh, yeah. You have the vibrant multi-tonal blue of the lagoon on your left and these towering green, jagged volcanic ridges rising sharply on your right.
But I'm assuming that low-stress feeling only happens if you did the prep work.
That is the ultimate caveat. The arrival feels easy only if you secured your transport weeks before you boarded the plane.
Because if you didn't...
Arriving on Raiatea without a pre-booked rental car or without having explicitly arranged an airport pickup with your pension host is the single most common way travelers start their trip on the back foot. You will find yourself standing in the humid tropical heat at the tiny airport, watching every other passenger confidently drive away while you frantically try to negotiate a $40 cab ride with a driver who may or may not speak English.
Okay, so we've successfully secured our rental car. We're driving down the spectacular coastal road, and the sun is starting to get low. We need to check in. Let's talk about accommodation, because arriving at your lodging here looks fundamentally different than checking into a massive resort in the Caribbean or even next door on Bora Bora. There is a structural truth to this island's hospitality scene.
Right. The defining feature of Raiatea's hospitality is that it is a pension island. It is not a mega resort island.
Looking at the lodging data, I was genuinely surprised to see absolutely zero Marriotts, no Four Seasons, no Intercontinentals. Everything revolves around these pensions. It reads to me almost like a rural European bed and breakfast setup, like an agriturismo in Italy, where you are basically staying on a local family's property. Is that an accurate way to visualize it?
That is a perfect analogy. A pension is essentially a family-run guest house. It is intimate, low-key, and deeply integrated into the local community. The owners usually live right there on the property.
Why is it set up that way?
This structure exists partly because of complex French Polynesian land ownership laws, which make it incredibly difficult for massive foreign corporations to buy up large tracts of coastal land to build mega-resorts.
Ah, so families just keep the land.
Families hold on to their ancestral land and build small clusters of bungalows instead. And that lack of corporate mega-resorts is the exact reason why Raiatea is so much more affordable and so much more culturally authentic than the famous resort islands.
Let's break down the 4 tiers of accommodation available, complete with the exact costs and the specific trade-offs for each, because doing your due diligence here is vital. Let's start at the most affordable end. The backpacker or budget traveler.
If you scrub the listings on platforms like TripAdvisor, you'll occasionally spot absolute bottom barrel listings for around $42 a night.
Wow, that's low.
It is, but realistically, for a clean, secure, and simple pension room, you should budget in the $60 to $110 range. These budget options are mostly concentrated near the town of Uturoa, with a few rugged outposts scattered down the coastlines.
What is the lived experience there? What are you actually getting for $80 a night?
You are getting immense authenticity. It is excellent for solo travelers or budget-conscious couples. You might have a fan instead of air conditioning, a cold water shower, and you'll probably be woken up by the neighborhood roosters at 4:30 a.m.
Okay, so you're really living like a local.
Yes, but you also get a local host who knows the island intimately. The chance to sit on a porch and share amazing home-cooked local meals and a very grounded experience.
And the trade-off.
The major trade-off is location. You are absolutely not on a beach, and you are highly dependent on a rental scooter or car to access the lagoon or the trailheads.
Okay, stepping up a tier, let's look at the mid-range couple.
Here, the budget shifts to $150 to $260 a night. This price point secures a very comfortable, well-appointed pension or a small boutique hotel. A prime example is a property like Fair Venui, located over on that sleepy west coast.
Nice.
You're getting standalone wooden bungalows, air conditioning, and often a small pool or a dock leading right out over the fringing reef.
And this tier is where the food inclusions start to become really important, right?
Crucially important. Many of these mid-range pensions operate on a half-board basis, which means your breakfast and a substantial dinner are included in the nightly rate.
That sounds like a great deal.
It is. If you find a half-board setup running near $110 to $130 per person per night, you have struck absolute gold. It is incredibly strong value because, as we will explore momentarily, standalone restaurants on this island are scarce, hard to get to, and prohibitively expensive.
But again, there has to be a trade-off.
The trade-off is isolation. The nicer, more scenic and romantic settings are purposefully spread out along the quiet coastlines. You're trading the convenience of being able to walk to a cafe or a grocery store for stunning, isolated scenery.
Meaning you need the car.
Exactly. Which means, once again, if you want to leave the property, you must have that rental car.
Let's move to tier 3. Families. Say I'm listening to this and I want to bring my kids to the South Pacific.
For a family of 4, you need to target a total nightly spend of roughly $220 to $400. This tier gets you a large family room, a combination of adjacent bungalows, or ideally, a self-catering setup that includes a private kitchen.
Having a kitchen sounds like an absolute lifesaver when you're traveling with kids.
It is the ultimate strategic advantage on Raiatea. Having access to a fridge and a stove allows you to bypass the staggering restaurant markups by cooking some of your own meals, which protects the family budget.
But what's the catch for families?
The glaring, unavoidable trade-off for families on Raiatea brings us right back to the geology. The beach issue.
Oh, right.
If your children are expecting to build sandcastles immediately outside their bedroom window, they're going to be miserable.
Yeah.
The only way to get your kids to a sandy beach is to book daily motu boat trips.
Wait, that's up.
Fast.
Yeah.
Factoring in an extra $100+ per person per day just for boat transfers changes the family budget entirely.
And finally, the luxury and comfort tier. If I have the budget to splurge, but I still refuse to pay the $1,080 a night minimum over in Bora Bora, where am I staying?
The absolute standout on the main island is the Opakua Beach Hotel, located down on the East Coast. It is a stunning colonial-style property. They feature gorgeous, white fabric, antique, over-lagoon bungalows that actually face out toward the sacred Taputapuatea marae in the distance.
Wait, clarify that terminology. You said over lagoon, not over water.
That is a very important distinction. They are built on stilts, extending over the water directly from the rocky shoreline, But they are not the deep-water isolated bungalows you see in the iconic Bora Bora aerial photos, where you can dive off your balcony into 15 feet of water.
So they're closer to land.
You are still attached to the shore. For these, you are looking at several $100s a night, climbing significantly during the high season.
What if I want totally isolated over water?
If you want total, uncompromised seclusion, you have to look at private island motu options like Motu Now Now or Motu Tavahin.
I imagine those private motus carry a massive premium.
They do. They are premium luxury rates, but incredibly, they still represent deep, meaningful savings compared to the elite resorts on Bora Bora. This tier suits couples wanting absolute exclusivity, refined dining, and high comfort without feeling like they are being price gouged.
So synthesizing all of this across the 4 tiers, what are the universal warnings listeners need to write down before they book?
3 critical things. First, assume zero walkability. Unless you are staying right in the center of Aotearoa, you will not be walking to dinner.
Right.
Second, monitor the noise levels. Aotearoa is livelier, with the port operations, dogs, and roosters, while the outer coasts are dead. Silent calm.
And the third?
Third, fiercely verify your inclusions.
Yeah.
Always double-check if half-board meals and airport transfers are explicitly included in your quoted rate. Most Raiatea stays are honest and do not carry those infuriating hidden resort fees you see in North America. But you must know exactly what you are paying for up front to manage your budget.
Okay, we've dropped our bags at the pension, we've unpacked, and now we are hungry. Let's talk about food, groceries, and local etiquette, because you noted something fascinating during our research. On Raiatea, you have to plan your day around food, rather than just grazing whenever you feel like it.
That is the honest reality of the food scene. It is small, it is localized, and it is highly structured. You cannot simply wander out of your pension at 8 p.m., stroll down a boardwalk, and expect to find a bustling street full of cafes, bistros, and tapas bars.
So you need to plan ahead.
Very much so. If you do not have a plan for dinner by 4:40 p.m., you run a very real risk of going to bed hungry.
So where actually is the food? If I have a kitchen, where am I shopping?
The commercial heartbeat of the island's food supply is Aotearoa. You have the Marché de Aotearoa, the municipal market, which opens at the crack of dawn.
What can you get there?
It is a fantastic, vibrant place to buy fresh tropical fruit, locally caught pelagic fish like tuna or mahi-mahi, and Raiatea's incredibly famous fragrant vanilla beans.
Oh, the vanilla.
Yes. For standard packaged groceries, you are heading to the supermarkets, places like Champion, Carrefour, or smaller, well-stocked general stores like Chinle.
And for dining out, let's talk exact costs here, because the import markup on a remote Pacific island is no joke.
It is a profound structural reality of the local economy. You have to remember the supply chain. Almost everything on the supermarket shelves or the restaurant supply trucks arrived via a massive cargo ship from France, New Zealand, or the U.S.
So lots of added fees.
Right, incurring heavy freight costs, fuel surcharges, and local sea taxes. If you want a traditional sit-down meal with table service, your options cluster around the boutique hotels. Places like Restaurant Villa Ixora, the dining room at the Opoa Beach Hotel, or Restaurant Apatoa.
How much are we talking?
The culinary quality is excellent heavy French influence mixed with local ingredients, but they are fiercely expensive. A single main dish will frequently run $40 to $85.
$85 for a main course. Okay, if I'm not traveling on an unlimited corporate expense account, what is the value play? How do normal people eat?
The absolute backbone of affordable, authentic dining in French Polynesia is the roulotte culture.
Food trucks.
Exactly. Roulottes are essentially large, customized food trucks, or semi-permanent food stands. You will find a great cluster of them in the main square in Aotearoa, and a few dotted around the coastal villages.
What's the experience like?
You walk up to the window, and you can get a massive, deeply satisfying plate of grilled tuna with rice, steak frites, hearty chow mein, or the absolute essential local dish, poisson cru, for about 1,300 to 1,700 XPF. That translates to roughly $12 to $16.
That is way better.
It is fresh, it is highly local, you sit on plastic chairs under the stars, and it is by far the best value hot meal on the island.
Okay, I have to pause on poisson cru, because if you are going to French Polynesia, you have to eat this. For the uninitiated, explain the mechanics of this dish.
It is the defining taste of the islands. It consists of raw, incredibly fresh, sushi-grade tuna, diced into cubes. It is marinated very briefly in pure lime juice.
Yeah.
The acidity essentially cooks the exterior of the protein.
Sounds amazing already.
Then it is tossed with crunchy, fresh vegetables, usually cucumbers, tomatoes, and shaved onions. Finally, and most importantly, It is completely drenched in fresh, sweet, hand-squeezed coconut milk.
Wow.
It is rich, acidic, fresh, and savory all at once. Buying a massive portion from a roulotte and eating it by the lagoon is an essential cultural experience.
What about the daily staples? If I need a coffee or I want to grab a beer?
Budget in USD. A decent espresso or coffee will cost around $4 to $5. A local Hinano beer, which is the ubiquitous lager of the islands, will run $4 to $6 at a store or a casual spot. A large bottle of water is $2 to $3.
Okay, pretty standard.
But here's the warning. When you go to the Carrefour to buy familiar staples from home, say, a liter of milk, a block of cheddar cheese, or a box of brand-name cereal for the kids at heavy import markup stings violently. A simple box of basic breakfast cereal might cost double or triple what it does at your local grocery store back home.
Ouch. Let's touch quickly on etiquette and tipping. If I am sitting at the roulette, or even at Villa Ixora, do I need to be calculating a 20% tip at the end of the meal?
No. This is a crucial cultural difference. Tipping is not expected, it is not culturally ingrained, and it is not required anywhere in French Polynesia. Service charges are legally factored into the advertised price of the meal.
Good to know, so leave the math at home.
Exactly. If you receive truly exceptional above and beyond service, leaving a small cash gesture or simply leaving the change is appreciated by the staff, but it's entirely optional. No one is chasing you out the door for a tip.
And hydration. Is it safe to just drink the tap water?
In the main town of Aotearoa, the municipal tap water is treated and is generally fine to drink. However, many visitors, especially those with sensitive stomachs, prefer to stick to bottled or filtered water to be entirely safe.
Especially outside of town, right?
Yes. This is particularly true when you are staying out on the remote outer coasts or on a motu, where the water systems might rely on localized rainwater catchment or basic filtration.
Before we move off etiquette, we have to circle back to Taputapuatea. I want to underscore this heavily because it is so easy for tourists to get this wrong. This is an active, deeply sacred site.
The respect demanded by this space cannot be overstated. Taputapuatea is not a ruined castle in Europe. It is not an abandoned ancient playground.
Right.
It retains immense mana or spiritual power for the Polynesian people. Modern ceremonies are still held there. The etiquette is strict and non-negotiable.
What are the rules?
Dress respectfully. Do not wear just a bikini or swim trunks. Stay strictly on the marked, manicured paths. Do not, under any circumstances, climb on the black basalt stone platforms or the coral slabs.
And definitely no influencer photo shoots.
Absolutely. Do not treat the altars as an Instagram prop to pose on. You are walking on hallowed ground. Treat it with the same reverence you would a major cathedral.
Okay, let's get down to brass tacks. We need to talk about the make-or-break financial reality of Raiatea. We are going to give you line item USD daily budgets tailored to specific traveler types. Let's start with the backpacker. If I am listening to this and trying to do this as cheaply as humanly possible, what is the math?
For a highly disciplined budget traveler, your absolute minimum target daily spend is roughly $130 to $170.
Break the mechanics of that down for me. Where is the money going?
The largest chunk is accommodation. You are booking a basic fan-cooled pension room for $60 to $90. For food, you are completely avoiding sit-down restaurants. You're eating exclusively at the roulottes and buying baguettes and fruit at the market, which allocates $25 to $35 a day.
Okay, so that's the base. What about getting around?
For transport, you are ideally sharing the cost of a rental scooter or splitting a small car with another traveler you met, which costs you $20 to $30 a day. For activities, you lean heavily on the free options, hiking the valleys, driving the coast, and visiting the free marae. But perhaps you budget for one low-cost excursion over the week, averaging out to $10 to $25 a day. And finally, a $15 buffer for incidentals like sunscreen or a beer.
What is the primary warning for the backpacker? What specific action blows this fragile budget to pieces?
The lagoon tour temptation. It is devastating to a shoestring budget. A single full-day boat tour out to a motu or over to snorkel around Taha costs $108 to $162 per person. Executing that excursion just once obliterates a budget traveler's daily allowance entirely.
Any other budget killers?
The other budget killer is alcohol. Imported wine or spirits will drain a backpacker budget instantly.
Moving to the mid-range traveler, this really feels like the demographic that Raiatea is perfectly designed for.
It is the absolute sweet spot. For a mid-range couple, target about $260 to $340 per person per day.
Walk me through that allocation.
That budget comfortably covers a spot in a lovely half-board pension or a small boutique hotel, accounting for $130 to $180 per person, and remembering that this covers breakfast and dinner. You have $30 to $45 allocated for extra food and drinks, perhaps grabbing a great Poisson crew lunch at a roulotte while you explore.
Nice. And the rental car.
Your half of the daily rental car is $30 to $45. And crucially, this budget averages in the cost of one significant paid excursion every day, like a guided kayak tour up the Faro River or a shared lagoon boat trip at $60 to $90 a day, plus a $25 buffer.
What is the blind spot for this mid-range traveler? What do they usually underestimate?
They underestimate the excursion stack. The absolute best experiences on Raiatea happen on the water, and every single time you step onto a boat, you are engaging a $100+ proposition.
Right.
Mid-range travelers often do great budgeting for their flights, the nice hotel and the car, but they forget how violently quickly 3 consecutive days of guided boat tours add up on the final credit card bill.
Let's look at the family of 4.
For a family of 4, target a total combined daily spend of $450 to $650. That is $220 to $380 for a multi-room or family-sized pension. $80 to $120 for food, assuming heavy utilization of the pension's kitchen for breakfasts and lunches, $70 to $95 for the family-sized rental car, and $120 to $200 averaged out across the week for shared activities and those necessary motu boat trips. Add a $50 buffer for ice cream and snacks.
And the family warning is pretty obvious based on what we established about the geology.
Exactly. Overrunning the budget on repeated motu trips. If your kids loudly demand to play on a sandy beach every single day of the vacation, you are paying that boat operator's fee every single day.
So what do you do?
The practical fix is to have a family meeting, budget for 2 or 3 big, deliberate, exciting water days, and use the rest of the time for the free river and land activities.
Let's scale up to the luxury tier.
Target $600 to $1,000+ per couple per day. That secures an over-lagoon bungalow at Opoa or a stay on a private motu. You allocate $120 to $200 for fine dining at the hotel restaurants, $95+ for a premium private car or arranged transfers, and $200 to $400 for premium private excursions. Think chartering a private lagoon boat for the day, booking a ULM microlight flight to soar over the volcanic peaks, or a day of private scuba diving, plus an $80 buffer.
It is undeniably a lot of money, but again, the comparison is key here.
Exactly. Even at the absolute top end, maximizing your luxury on Raiatea, you're coming in well below the entry-level base rates. For a standard room on Bora Bora, you're getting immense value for the high-end dollar.
Finally, what about the digital nomad? I know remote work is a huge trend right now.
For a nomad, target $2,600 to $4,200 for a month. $1,200 to $2,000 for a negotiated long-stay pension rental, $600 to $900 for food, leaning heavily on the municipal markets and cooking at home, $500 to $800 for a monthly scooter or car rental, and $300 to $500 for data, local SIM cards, and miscellaneous expenses.
If I am a digital nomad listening to this, I might be tempted by those monthly rates compared to living in London or New York. But I suspect I'm going to hit a massive wall regarding infrastructure.
You will hit a concrete wall regarding Wi-Fi.
Oh, boy.
Connectivity outside of the immediate vicinity of Aotearoa is extremely limited, spotty, and slow. Dedicated co-working spaces with fiber internet simply do not exist in a meaningful way.
So it's a short-term spot only.
Raiatea is wonderful for a short, scenic, 2-week nomad stint where you are doing light email work. It is absolutely not a viable long-term hub if you need to be on high-definition video calls 8 hours a day.
So, synthesizing the financials. Bad value on Raiatea is eating a sit-down restaurant dinner every night, relying on taxis, and booking daily private boat trips.
Yes, that will drain your account.
And good value is hitting the roulottes, sharing a rental car, maximizing the free hikes in the marae, and booking 2 or 3 deliberate, well-chosen group water excursions. Which brings us to the core of this deep dive, avoiding the traps.
Big traps.
We have identified 3 named logistics traps that snare first-time visitors. Trap number 1, the motu-beach trap. We have danced around this, but let's define the exact mechanism one more time for absolute clarity.
The mechanism is a fundamental, deeply entrenched mismatch between traveler expectation and geological reality. People expect a swimmable, raked, white sand beach attached directly to the lobby of their hotel. But as we discussed regarding the island's volcanic age, the geography of Raiatea's main island is fringing reef, mangrove swamp, and sharp rock. The postcard sand lives on the offshore motu.
So the lived reality is the traveler arriving, throwing their bags down, putting on their swimsuit, walking out the back door, staring at a mangrove swamp, and experiencing profound psychological shock.
Exactly. And the cost penalty to fix that shock is steep.
Incredibly steep, because every proper beach day now requires a paid boat excursion at $108 to $162 per person. Or booking a full-day Taha Lagoon tour like the highly rated ones run by our tours for about $140 per person.
Right, which completely ruins the budget if you didn't plan for it.
Who gets hit hardest by this trap?
Families with young kids who need easy water access, and couples who envisioned a highly traditional, beach-centric honeymoon.
What's the fix?
The practical fix is psychological acceptance. Accept that Raiatea is a culture, hiking, and sailing island. Budget for 2 or 3 deliberate motu days. If you genuinely need more beach time than that, you must split your itinerary and add nights on a different island, like Taha or Huahin.
Trap number 2, the no transport trap. The scenario here is you look at the $65 to $95 daily rental car fee on your spreadsheet and you say, I'm on vacation, I want to relax, I don't want to navigate foreign roads, I'll just wing it and walk or take cabs.
The lived reality of that decision is that you are instantly stranded. There are no buses, taxis are rare, and charge $20 to $40 each way. You cannot safely walk along the narrow coastal road to Taputapuatea, you cannot walk to the Faro River, and unless you are in Utaroa, you likely cannot walk to a decent restaurant. You are basically a prisoner at your pension.
And the cost penalty for this one?
The penalty is either finally caving and renting the $95 car anyway, assuming one is still available, or paying exorbitant, budget-destroying taxi fares, assuming you can even find a driver.
Who falls for this?
This trap usually snares budget solo travelers who falsely assume island logistics in the South Pacific operate like the cheap, ubiquitous tuk-tuk networks in Southeast Asia. They absolutely do not.
So the fix is pre-booking wheels. Or, if you absolutely refuse to drive, you must ensure your pension provides reliable transfers and includes daily tours in their rate.
Yes, or you can cluster your driving days. Rent a car for 3 days to do all your exploring, and use the rest of the days for boat tours where the operator picks you up.
Trap number 3, the weather and ferry trap. Now I'm going to push back on this one. It's a tropical island. Does a little rain really ruin an itinerary? Surely you can just read a book on the porch and wait for it to pass.
It is not just a little rain. The mechanism here is that Raiatea's absolute best experiences, the sailing, the lagoon tours, the Apatahi Express ferry crossing, the inter-island flights are 100% weather dependent. During the December to March wet and cyclone season, a severe tropical storm doesn't just mean you read a book indoors. It means small boats are legally confined to port by the maritime authorities.
Which means your $150 lagoon tour is scrubbed.
Yes, but the real devastating lived reality is the domino effect on multi-island aviation itineraries. The domestic airline Air Tahiti flies small ATR-72 turboprop planes. They operate heavily on visual flight rules.
So they need to see where they're going.
Right. A severe squall rolls in, visibility drops, and suddenly flights are grounded. Because schedules are tight, if your afternoon flight to Bora Bora is blown, you are stuck. Each Air Tahiti leg is $160 to $190.
And you lose the hotel on the other side.
Exactly. The cost penalty of a misconnection, a lost, non-refundable luxury hotel night on the next island, and lost excursion money is massive. The dominoes fall, and the whole trip collapses.
Who is most at risk here?
Wet season visitors, obviously, but specifically anyone island hopping on a hyper-optimized to-the-minute schedule with zero slack built in.
The fix.
The practical fix is to travel during the May-October dry season. If you must travel in the wet season, never book the final flight of the day, build buffer nights between islands, and purchase comprehensive travel insurance that explicitly, clearly covers weather cancellations.
All right, let's transition from keeping your wallet safe to keeping yourself physically safe. We're talking safety, solo travel, and comfort. What is the actual statistical risk hierarchy on Raiatea?
The risk hierarchy is entirely dominated by nature and logistics, not human crime. Violent crime against tourists is exceedingly vanishingly rare. Petty theft exists, but it's low-level crime of opportunity. Don't leave a Rolex on your beach towel. Lock your rental car when you hike. Use standard common sense.
So what are the real dangers that actually put people in the hospital?
The ocean and the reef environment. You are dealing with unpredictable, incredibly strong tidal currents in the reef passes where the lagoon meets the open ocean. You are dealing with severe coral cuts and subsequent staph infections if you scrape the reef while snorkeling.
Oh!
Yeah, there are marine hazards like stepping on a stonefish. And there are boating incidents. After the water, it's road risk. The coastal roads are very narrow, they have no shoulders, they are often unlit at night, and local drivers navigate them much faster than you do.
Let's talk about the medical reality, because while Raiatea has infrastructure, it is still a remote island in the middle of the Pacific.
This is a primary structural constraint you must understand. Raiatea does have a hospital located in Utaroa, which is a major advantage over smaller islands. It can handle basic emergencies, stitches, broken bones, and minor issues.
But for something major.
For any serious trauma, complex cardiac events, or severe medical emergencies, you require a specialized medical evacuation flight to the main advanced hospital facility in Papeete on the island of Tahiti.
So insurance is key.
Therefore, anyone traveling to Raiatea must carry comprehensive travel insurance that explicitly includes high-limit medical evacuation coverage. It is absolutely non-negotiable.
Well, what about solo travelers, specifically solo female travelers?
The data and anecdotal reports indicate that Raiatea reads as highly comfortable, safe, and low hassle for solo female travelers.
That's great to hear.
It is. The Polynesian culture is immensely welcoming and family-oriented. The fact that you are staying in family-run pensions provides a wonderful built-in safety net and local connection. The hosts look out for you. Street harassment or aggressive catcalling is simply not a notable cultural problem here.
The only caveat you noted in the research regarding solo travel was about the hiking.
Yes. Do not attempt to hike Mount Temahani or any of the deep interior valleys alone. The trails are not heavily manicured park paths. They can be treacherous. The weather turns fast, cloud cover rolls in obscuring the path, and there is no cell service. You require a local guide for a reason.
And for families, what are the specific discomforts to expect?
Comfort is very high on land, but strict, undivided supervision on the water is mandatory. Because the sandy beaches are out on the Motu, the lagoon depth can vary wildly and suddenly. A child can be in knee-deep water on a sandbar, take one step, and be in a deep channel with a sweeping current.
Any local scams to watch out for?
Very minimal. You don't see the aggressive street hustles you find in major European cities. The closest thing to a scam is being severely overcharged by a scarce taxi at the airport. But as we discussed, that is a pricing and supply monopoly problem, not a coordinated fraud.
Any nightlife.
Expect zero nightlife. This is not a party island. The after dark issue is more about having little to do by 9:00 p.m. than about any actual danger. The key takeaway on safety is that you are dealing with the realities of a remote island environment. You plan for limited services, and you respect the ocean. You don't fear the people.
We've talked logistics, budgets, and traps. Let's talk about the actual experience, the best moments and the honest disappointments. Let's start with the highlights. What makes the magic of this island?
The magic of Raiatea is earned, and it starts at marae Taputapuatea down at Opoa. As we discussed, this is the UNESCO-listed spiritual heart of Polynesia, and astonishingly, it remains free to visit.
What's the best way to experience it?
The best moment you can possibly have on this island is arriving there early in the morning, right as the sun comes up over the lagoon, long before any cruise ship buses pull into the parking lot. The light is soft, the air is dead quiet, and the historical gravity of standing exactly where ancient navigators mapped the vast Pacific Ocean is profoundly powerful. You could feel the mana of the place.
You also mentioned the Faro River in the research notes, which is geologically unique.
It is incredible because it is the only navigable river in all of French Polynesia. It exists because of a deep, drowned volcanic valley on the east coast.
So you can kayak it.
Exactly. A guided trip usually involves taking an outrigger or kayaking slowly up the river, cutting through this dense, towering Jurassic-style rainforest, learning about the wild hibiscus and the local flora, and then turning around and heading out into the bright, sunlit lagoon for a motu stop. For around $108 to $162, depending on the operator, it is consistently rated as the single best value excursion day on the island.
What about the sailing and the water itself?
World class. Sailing the massive shared lagoon that encompasses both Raiatea and Taha is exactly what people dream of when they think of the South Pacific. Even if you aren't chartering a luxury yacht for a week, booking a day-trip catamaran cruise, or doing a guided drift snorkel through the vibrant coral gardens situated between the two islands, delivers that quintessential hypersaturated Polynesian magic.
Are there any specific agricultural stops worth making? I know this region is famous for specific exports.
Absolutely. The local economy is deeply tied to agriculture and aquaculture. Taking a boat over to a working vanilla farm on Taha, which produces some of the most sought-after vanilla in the world, or visiting a pearl farm right on Raiatea, like the Apatoa farm, are fantastic.
Good way to see the real economy.
Exactly. They're tangible ways to understand how the locals make a living beyond tourism. You see how the oysters are grafted and how the pearls are harvested.
And for the highly active crowd.
The hiking is phenomenal, provided you go in the dry season. The 3 waterfalls hike takes about 4 hours and is incredibly lush and rewarding. But the absolute crown jewel of the island is the guided climb up Mount Tamahani.
That's the 6-hour one, right?
Right. It's a grueling, sweaty, 6-hour trek up the volcanic plateau. But it is the only place on Earth where the Tierra apatahi flower grows.
What's so special about it?
It is a striking, endemic white flower with petals that only open on one side, making it look like a human hand. Seeing that flower in its natural habitat is a true once-in-a-lifetime standout experience.
Okay, we have to balance the scales. What are the honest disappointments? Where does the island fail to deliver?
We've hammered it repeatedly, but it remains the #1 complaint. No beach on the main island. Travelers who didn't do their research feel genuinely shortchanged.
Because of the photos.
Right. They look at the promotional tourism photos, which are cleverly framed to hide the fact that the sand is out on a distant motu, and they feel misled when they arrive at a rocky shoreline.
What about the main town, Utaroa?
Utaroa is a functional working port town. It is not a charming cobblestone historic quarter. On a cruise day, it is crowded, aggressively hot, noisy, and frankly underwhelming. Also, foodies who travel expecting a wide variety of cutting-edge culinary options, bistros, and wine bars will be deeply frustrated by the sheer lack of restaurants and the astronomical prices when they do find one.
What activity is fundamentally overrated?
Treating Raiatea as a hurried half-day stopover off a boat. It does the island absolutely no justice. You need time on land to feel its rhythm. Also, overpeps for private luxury lagoon charters is often a mistake for the mid-range traveler. A shared, small group tour run by a reputable local operator will deliver 80% of the exact same visual and cultural experience for a fraction of the cost.
So the overarching rule of thumb for Raiatea is that things are markedly, undeniably better early in the day and strictly in the dry season. Midday cruise ship hours and wet season torrential rains are when Raiatea underperforms and frustrates the traveler.
Exactly.
Let's look at the alternatives. Say a listener has heard all of this. They've heard about the lack of beaches, the need for a rental car, the incredible history, and they're thinking, Raiatea sounds deeply interesting, but maybe it's not quite my exact flavor of vacation. Let's give them 2 specific, highly viable pivots. Alternative 1, Taha.
Taha is the sister island. It literally shares the exact same continuous barrier reef and lagoon as Raiatea. It is just a quick 30-minute boat ride away. Crucially, Taha does not have its own airport. You have to fly into Raiatea to get there.
So they are a natural geographical pairing.
Yes, most people base themselves on Raiatea and day trip to Taha. But as a standalone choice to actually sleep on, Taha is the much more laid-back, deeply rural, vanilla-scented option. It has far better access to motu beaches right offshore.
How do the costs compare if I swap Raiatea for Taha?
The USD cost difference is relatively modest if you are staying in standard family-run pensions on Taha. However, the budget jumps sharply and aggressively if you decide to book into the luxury resorts there, like La Taha by Pearl Resorts, which pushes you right back up with that overwater bungalow, Bora Bora style pricing stratosphere of $1,000+ a night.
So why would I actively choose Taha over Raiatea?
Choose Taha if your absolute priority is quieter motu beach time, profound relaxation, and that incredible omnipresent scent of curing vanilla in the air. Choose it if you do not care about visiting the sacred marae, if you don't need the bustling sailing infrastructure of Utaroa, and if you aren't interested in serious, grueling mountain hikes. Taha does pure relaxation better. Raiatea wins on culture, logistics, the presence of a hospital, and the sheer variety of active pursuits.
Alternative 2, Hua Hin. I always call Hua Hin the all-rounder of the Society Islands.
It really is the ultimate all-rounder. Hua Hin is another leeward island, located just a short flight or ferry ride to the east of Raiatea. And importantly, it is also being heavily promoted under that Ferriera Manihini 2027 strategy to redirect crowds away from Bora Bora.
What makes it so compelling as an alternative?
It offers a very rare, highly sought-after combination in French Polynesia. It actually has accessible, beautiful white sand beaches right on the main island. No expensive motu boat transfers required. It has its own highly significant archaeological marae sites, specifically the Maiva complex, which is fascinating. And it retains a lush, incredibly wild, very uncommercial feel. It feels like stepping back in time. And it does all this at broadly similar or sometimes slightly lower overall costs compared to Raiatea.
Why choose Hua Hin over Raiatea?
Choose Hua Hin if you want the authentic Polynesian culture and history, but you demand real walkout beach access without having to pay a boat operator every day. It gives you both the jungle and the sand in one package, without the bustling, sometimes noisy sailing-based energy of Utaroa.
But Raiatea still holds the crown for certain things.
Without a doubt. Choose Raiatea for the sheer volume of world-class sailing, for the ultimate unparalleled sacred site at Taputapuatea, for the geographically unique navigable Wharoa River, and for the serious endemic flower hiking on Mount Tamahani. Raiatea remains the undeniable muscular natural hub for exploring the entire Leeward group.
All right, we have reached the finish line. The Is It Worth It matrix. We are going to give the final definitive scores and the exact breakdowns for every traveler profile based on the massive amount of data we've uncovered today. Let's bring it home. The backpacker.
Rating: 6.5 out of 10. It is worth it if you lean hard into $60 to $90 pensions, eat exclusively at the roulottes, focus intensely on the free valley hikes and the free marae, and you fundamentally value deep culture and sailing over lying on a beach.
And skip it if.
Skip it if your tight budget cannot absorb the near-mandatory rental car and the $108 to $162 boat trips that are the only physical way to reach the sand.
So what's the key number?
Key USD number to remember: $130 to $170 a day all in. The practical read is that it's doable on a shoestring budget, but the water excursions that actually make the island special are highly expensive. Pick 2 excursions and skip the rest. Honestly, if you want a beach-heavy backpacking trip, pivoting to Hawaiian is the much better call.
The mid-range traveler or couple?
Rating: 8 out of 10. It is worth it if you want authentic Polynesia, incredible lagoon sailing, and deep historical culture, entirely minus the Bora Bora prices, and you have intelligently budgeted for 2 or 3 paid water days.
Skip if.
Skip it if you specifically want a walkout hotel beach and high-end manicured resort polish.
Key number.
Key USD number to remember: $260 to $340 per person per day. The practical read: this is Raiatea's absolute sweet spot. Booking a half-board pension, splitting a rental car, taking a lagoon tour, and spending a quiet morning at the marae makes for a superb, unforgettable 3 to 4 night trip. If you need a beach dimension, pair it with a few nights on Taha.
The family of 4.
Rating: 7 out of 10. It is worth it if your kids are highly adventurous, into boats, love snorkeling, and you have deliberately financially budgeted for paid motu-beach days.
And skip it if.
Skip it if you need a safe, walkout hotel beach to keep young children occupied and happy day to day.
Key number.
Key USD number to remember: $450 to $650 a day for the family of 4. The practical read is the space and the private kitchen access of family pensions offer brilliant value. But beach time costs extra every single time. Plan 2 or 3 big water days and use the free marae and the river for the rest of the time to keep the family budget intact.
The luxury traveler.
Rating: 7.5 out of 10. It is worth it if you want profound Polynesian seclusion and over-lagoon bungalows at a place like Opoa Beach Hotel or a private motu for meaningfully less money than Bora Bora.
Skip if.
Skip it if your definition of luxury strictly requires a massive large resort ecosystem with multiple fine dining restaurants, a massive spa, and a signature raked white sand beach.
Key number.
Key USD number to remember: $600 to $1,000 plus per couple per day. Practical read: Raiatea delivers exclusivity and deep culture over glossy commercial luxury. It's excellent. But if you want that glossy resort finish too, you should combine it with a few nights on Bora Bora.
And finally, the digital nomad.
Rating: 5.5 out of 10. It is worth it if it for a short, scenic work stint, you base yourself strictly near Utaroa for the connectivity, and you value total calm over community.
Skip if.
Skip it if you require reliable, high-speed fiber internet everywhere, dedicated co-working spaces, or a vibrant social nomad scene.
Key number.
Key USD number to remember: $2,600 to $4,200 a month. Practical read: the connectivity thins out incredibly fast once you leave town. Treat Raiatea as a 2 to 3 week base at most. It is not a viable long-term nomad hub.
So synthesizing all of this data into one overall verdict.
The verdict is: book carefully and book with your eyes open. Raiatea is genuinely worth it for culture-focused travelers, for sailors, for hikers, and for value-seeking couples.
But no illusions.
Right. You must understand, before you hand over your credit card, that this is a sacred, sailing-first island whose beaches are hidden out on the motu. It is not worth it as a lazy beach holiday. Book now for the June to September dry season, while the prices still trail the island's rapidly rising profile, and definitely book before that postponed passenger tax lands. Wait only if your sole available travel window is the peak wet season, and skip it outright if you came to French Polynesia purely to lie on the sand at your hotel.
It all comes back to that initial tension we talked about at the very top of the show. People want the clean, binary, X-ray diagnosis of a destination. They want tropical island equals beach.
Always.
But Raiatea is beautifully, stubbornly murky. It demands that you engage with it on its own historical and geological terms.
Which leaves us with something I think is really important for every traveler to ponder.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about the economics today, the supply chains, the strategies. The Furriera Manahini 2027 plan to deliberately redirect tourists. But consider the spiritual gravity of a place like marae Taputapuatea. This was the center of a civilization.
An entire civilization.
Yeah, so how does the fundamental energy of an island change when it is suddenly marketed to the world as the overflow solution for its famous overcrowded neighbor, Bora Bora? Does gaining the world's attention and absorbing its redirected crowds ultimately cost a destination its soul?
That is a profound question. And honestly, it is a question you can only answer by standing there yourself early in the morning, listening to the wind come off the lagoon. If this gave you the honest verdict you needed, follow the show. New episodes drop every day.
That is the honest verdict from Phil and H.